Good evening, Horizon Worlds. Welcome to Meta News Business. I am El Blanco. This is the Blanco Business segment, and tonight, I'm not going to go so far into a lot of the geopolitical stuff. I think we talked about enough of that. I think people should be aware of what's going on worldwide and how that affects our domestic, our domestic affairs, especially the money. But I have been hearing things I've been getting calls from Chicago, and they're talking about how these cities are getting so much funding and getting money sent to them for letting the immigrants come to the cities, and they're watching the landscape change. So that's another thing to think about when it comes to business and economics, because that will affect you. The money and the benefits and all the other things that population leans upon or depends on when the economy is where it's at in a type of condition that they like to call a recession instead of a depression. But tonight we're going to talk about some things tonight that's dealing with what the members here need to know still. So I'm still focusing on what the members need to know, because a lot of members in Horizons that they call us users of accounts, we're trying to get established, and we're trying to get established as we see the expansion of Horizons appearing on tablets, cell phones, and desktop and things like that. I've even seen some shows when I'm in the Oculus side watching the browser television and looking at a show that they have with celebrities. That really are getting people to know about this headset. But tonight, the topic is, learning how to understand contracts, or learning how to, get into writing contracts. This is a very, very, very vast and complex subject. So we won't talk about it all tonight. We're probably going to talk about only 10% of it. Um, and hopefully, at some point in time, the members are going to realize that they need to understand law. They're going to have to know law. They're going to have to stop saying that I'm just going to get an attorney. Um, because if you don't understand the law, sometimes the attorney you have will also leave loopholes in your contract. So when something comes back, you will need him to resolve it, or him to settle a dispute and make more money with you if you don't understand the contract. So, in understanding the contract, I'm going to read this first little piece here. Is just basically talking about some of the things you need to be aware of if you want to understand how to draft contracts, and that is contract law. That's a whole topic for contract law. You can get out here, you can start reading about contract law and learning the overview premise of contract law. And it says what contract law is, but you must have a strong grasp of contract law principles, because most things, well, everything, not most things, everything has principles. Everything has a foundation. You have to have principles, just like you have to have facts before you come up with something. You got to have a strong grasp of contract law principles, including the elements of a valid contract. That means what makes a valid contract. You must also understand the concept of offer and acceptance. Someone makes an offer, someone accepts. And what I try to get people to understand in here is various ways you can accept the contract. It doesn't have to be in writing. And in some cases, it doesn't even have to be verbal. But that goes beyond the scope of public and general knowledge, because people typically go with what the populace believes and thinks based on what they hear all the time. And some people think that, well, if you don't sign nothing, you don't have a contract, or if you didn't agree to it. But it's different ways you can accept an offer of contract. Then there's a concept called consideration. What is being considered? What is the consideration? Are you giving me money, or you giving me sweat equity? In return, am I giving you access, or am I giving you a product or a service? That's what consideration means. Then you must understand the concept or the principle of legality. Is this legal? Now, certain things in certain jurisdictions are legal, and some things are not legal in certain jurisdictions. So even though they say legality, you still have to know a lot more about what's legal and when it's legal and where it's legal. Then there's capacity. Capacity means, can I enter into a contract and say I'm going to deliver 10 million items of a product, right? And I don't even have a system by which I can even hold 10 million products, and I don't even know how to store it. You have to have capacity. And you got to have more understanding of the laws and the regulations that govern contracts in your jurisdiction. So what do they mean by that? You must understand, the laws and regulations. So we have what you would call a government. This government regulates commerce, and because they regulate commerce, everything that's considered a commercial act is something that they regulate, and they regulate commerce across the United States. That's the federal government. The states regulate commerce within the states, within the states, interstate. So when you understand that, you're seeing that I'm talking two jurisdictions. And if I'm talking two different jurisdictions, that means you may have different laws and you may have different rules governing that commerce that will govern that particular contract. So think about it when someone has a contract, like, someone's in Georgia and another person's in California. The terms in that contract is going to specify what law is going to govern that contract because those are two different jurisdictions. So the contract itself must specify what laws are going to govern. And if it's not specified, then the state is going to make that decision based on all the other elements of the contract. Let's say that I'm in Georgia and some guy out of California kind of like gave me a bad deal and he didn't meet his obligations to the contract. And so they may choose to let the law of Georgia govern it because that person in California is the one that's in breach. But there's different reasons why they may or may not do that. So understanding contracts is how you can make things happen, literally make things happen when otherwise you cannot. Because if you need to do a deal and you don't have the money it's required, but yet and still the money can be produced and just by the transaction still taking place, you can contract to have that person get his money on the back end and give him a premium, agree to a premium since he'll have to wait for everything to take place through the contract to get his money. Or you can make other arrangements and do other terms of contract so that it's still favorable to him. Like the contract may specify that you got to go get an insurance policy or bond to cover this whole thing in case something happened and we don't generate that money at the end of the cycle that I'm waiting on to get paid. So when you understand that, you can make contracts and you can enter deals and create deals and you can do business a lot better than you can without knowing how to contract. Because in most cases, most people don't know contract rules or contract law. And one of the big obstacles is, okay, have an attorney look over that contract, paying the cost to have an attorney look over it. Then probably more of a cost to have that attorney, modify to revise it or, modify the terms. So that's the main thing to know tonight, people, that you must learn the laws so that you can contract and contract, in a manner in which it benefits you and not always put you in a risky position or position of greater liability than it would if you knew how to contract. So that's it for tonight. We talked about contracts tonight, but it's mainly for all the people who are trying to move forward, get their businesses together and things as such. So you can look forward to me in the near future talking about a platform that I am setting up for that in the future to get people involved in learning all of these things. And one of the main things will be contracts. So thank you for tuning in tonight and thank you for watching Horizon News and no Meta News. Sorry, Meta News and Horizon Worlds, Horizon Worlds premier news source. And you can watch us on YouTube. You can see our shows on YouTube at Meta News for Horizon Worlds VR. That is the channel, Meta News for Horizon Worlds VR. And you can also see what we're doing and keep up with our activities by going to the Instagram, and that's Meta News underscore, but that's spelled with two S's. Meta News with two S's underscore. Okay, thank you for tuning in. I'm El Blanco. Good night.